Welcome, guys. Welcome. Just give us a couple minutes to get everything set up. Okay. Um, all right. Hello. There we go. Perfect. All right. Let me get the link shared in our stage archive. That's there. Very good. And we're down in stage chat on the Sphere Finance Discord. We're also streaming on YouTube, and we have our Twitter Spaces up and going as well. So welcome one and all. And for those of you on either YouTube or Twitter Spaces, feel free to join us on Discord. That's where I think most of the interaction happens in terms of chatting with people. But we will do our very best to look on YouTube, look on Twitter Spaces to any questions, comments that come up there. All right. So for those of you joining Fresh Start, the purpose of these AMAs is to help kind of bridge the communication gap between the core and community, help answer different questions. So I have some information to kind of go through, and then additionally have some different questions that you have all asked in the hashtag stage questions on Discord that I'll run through as well. So we'll get started here very shortly. All right. So let's go ahead, jump, and get started. So first and foremost, some of the different things to talk through is that we are continuing to restructure the team, as we've mentioned before, including the addition of some new devs. And I'll talk about that a little bit more because it came up one of the questions as well. Congratulations to everyone who received the VECHR airdrop. That ran just under 150 million Sphere tokens locked during that airdrop eligibility period, amounting to around $500,000 worth of Sphere. So that was a very effective campaign, and we really appreciate everyone who participated. The floor lock amount ended at 248.57K Sphere, which is roughly between $700-$800. So pretty high hoop to jump through for those who are looking to get that VECHR airdrop. And of the 150 million Sphere that was locked within that eligibility period, almost 45 million were locked on the last day of eligibility, which is a massive amount, a massive push at that the end of the day. I've seen questions about people asking about claiming airdrops, this sort of thing. That will come forward more in the future, but please be aware that you won't have to claim anything. It will simply be airdropped. Okay, we have the wallets who meet that criteria for the top 200 who are eligible. You don't have to click on anything or claim anything. They will simply be airdropped to your wallets. And then because it is VECHR, it is going to be locked for the maximum time through Kronos, which I believe is 2 years. But you can use it to mobilize governance power on Kronos Exchange once they launch, which means you can drive incentives to liquidity pools, you can earn swap fees, and you can, of course, earn bribe revenue as well. Now, because it is an NFT, you can also technically sell it on a secondary marketplace as well. But yeah, congratulations to everyone who was in that top 200 to receive those airdrops. I'm sure many of you have also noticed at this point that Satin Exchange has been undergoing a lot of different organizational and structural changes. And Satin Exchange will be relaunching as a Theta fork, initially called Vibrato, but they now are calling it Retro. And for us, what that means is that number one, they're working out the details on how to migrate SP Satin for users and for Sphere. So that's being worked out. And then Satin tokens and VE Satin, they've said will be able to be exchanged for a receipt token that can be used to obtain VE tokens of Retro. So that is all going through on their, their side, on their Discord. So feel free to follow with that if you would like. But I did want to mention that here because, we of course have our liquid wrapper for that exchange, and that will be transitioning to Retro Exchange. Something I wanted to kind of hammer out more in detail as well, because this is something that Sim had mentioned in the chat, and I think it's just an extra step in the thought process of meta governance that I think is important to point out, which is that with meta governance, when we launch another token or product, for example, Star, which is Preon stablecoin, we will be able to launch that onto different chains such as AVAX, Kava, ARB, and we will have a good amount of governance to then drive yield to our own stablecoin to incentivize liquidity, because we have that governance through Dyson and through Sphere. Of course, more incentivization of the liquidity means more demand for the Star token, means more TVL inside Preon, because users will have to deposit collateral to then obtain the Star stablecoin. And that will, of course, bring in more revenue for Preon and more revenue for Sphere. So that's a bigger picture, step outside of the box type of thinking in terms of what meta governance can do, how it can be useful for the Sphere ecosystem as a whole. Jumping back a little bit to Kronos, we've talked about, I think it was last AMA, yeah, because we were still talking about the airdrop. We were talking about how Kronos and their liquidity pool tokens are actually what are called MA NFTs, or maturity adjusted NFTs, that basically receive boosted yields over time based on how long you have liquidity in the protocol. I believe the maximum is 6 weeks, at which point it is at a max boost. And again, because the liquidity position itself is an NFT, the liquidity position as a whole can be traded. So that opens up a whole bunch of different possibilities. And Sim has mentioned some possible synergies between Preon and Kronos in the previous AMA that was done. So interesting things to start to think about in terms of what can be potentially done with those. We continue to work on the marketing team with respects to how to market the vision of the ecosystem as a whole before the entire ecosystem launches. So the more that we can kind of work through and figure out how to better put these pieces together in a more digestible way, obviously the easier it will be for newcomers to better get a grasp of the ecosystem and potentially be interested in joining in with these different products if they find them to be useful. Also, very important to note, we are continuing to work on the API for Dyson. So please excuse occasional bug issues, such as TVL errors, that sort of thing. We're working through the API, so naturally these things can fluctuate. We've recently just released 2 new vaults on Dyson, and we've added a nice little indicator that the vault is new, which I really like, and you can also search for new vaults. And that is the SP-GLCR and GLCR-LP on Avalanche with Glacier Finance and other VE33 decks on Avalanche. And also the JRTW ETH LP from Solid Lizard. and JRT is the token of Jarvis Finance, or the Jarvis network, which they are responsible for onboarding a lot of fiat currencies into crypto. For example, the J Euro, or tokens of that sort. TSIP time, one moment. All right. We had also mentioned in a recent announcement, just as a case study and possible future Medium article, about SP-SLIZ. So SP-SLIZ has been very effective as a liquid wrapper. So far, we've managed to remove over 8% of SLIZ off the market and locked perpetually. And what this does is it has helped out immensely to counter the number of emissions sold versus bribes received to VE-SLIZ holders. So as a VE-SLIZ holder, your goal is to earn enough swap fees and bribe revenue to offset the selling pressure of the emission token. And because of this SP-SLIZ black hole of emissions, Solid Lizard has become one of the few solidly dexes with net positives in revenue each week. So that's a pretty awesome accomplishment. It's helped stabilize SLIZ's price and ultimately allowed liquidity providers to get very solid yields, right? Because yes, there are inevitably going to be liquidity providers who are uninterested in the SLIZ token and are just going to sell their SLIZ tokens. And with the stability of the price of SLIZ, they're able to receive stable yield on their liquidity, making them more likely to keep their liquidity in that DEX. So all in all, SP-SLIZ and this SP model is proving itself to be very effective at what it's set out to do. And of course, we aim to do this across the DeFi space with other DEXs as well. So let me take a pause there. Does anyone have any thoughts, questions, concerns about all of that information? I see one question in stage chat so far. Where is Ralph? Ralph is attending to his personal responsibilities, so he'll be back when he is able. Let's see here. I think so far so good. Before I jump into the questions, how are you guys doing here in Discord, YouTube, and on Twitter? Especially today with the market conditions. How's everyone dealing with that? Kato, I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you. SP-SLIZ peg took a big hit. Last I checked it was still 99% on DeFi Wars. I may have to double check, but I recall SP-STR was lower, and then it was able to climb its way back up as well. 82%. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Thankfully, the auto compounding mechanism of this wrapper has been very effective at keeping things and pushing things up over time. Pandu, personally, I'm happy when the market is in red. I'm also one of those unique people who feel that way. I get very excited when I see red on the charts because I know I can DCA into my favorite assets for cheaper. But that's a mindset thing, and there's obviously risk there as well. It's not like that is without risk. All right, very good. Well then, we have a bunch of questions to go through, so I'm going to go ahead and get started so we can answer some of those questions for people. So I believe some of these were from the Kronos AMA, but there's only a couple like that, and they're pretty quick to answer, so I did just want to address them. From Prosperity had asked, how can I swap Sphere to USDC? And thank you, Oxy, for responding to this one. Ultimately, the best place to swap Sphere currently is on Balancer. You can swap directly to and from a wide variety of different assets, but technically the lowest slippage will be between Sphere and WMatic, since that's what the Sphere LP consists of. You don't have to use Balancer. You can use aggregators like 1inch, but ultimately the LP is on Balancer, so swapping between Sphere and WMatic will provide you with the lowest slippage. Yo Mama Fat, hey, can we get some words on new devs where they will be allocated, asking in stage chat? I guess in a broader sense, I would suggest thinking about, what is being built within Sphere, and then kind of consider where we might be allocating them. But ultimately, they'll be working on different contracts. So they are contract devs. But it's a good question. All right, another question that I believe was from the Kronos AMA, which is Kronos part of Kronos? So is CHR Kronos part of CR Kronos? And thanks, Pandu, for responding to this one. No. CHR Kronos is a VE33 DEX that is launching on Arbitrum, and it is not related to or part of the Kronos CRO blockchain. Right. So yeah, contract is essentially back-end devs responding to stage chat. Is either a security or not? Yeah. Oh, the debate continues with the Mr. Gary. Indeed. I will stay as far away from that as I can until it things have settled. Personally, but I know people obviously in this space have to care and listen to what that's about. A lot in question still. All right. So the first question beyond, I think those are the only two part of the Kronos AMA questions. So the rest of them, I believe, were intended for me for these AMAs. So let's jump into those. The first was from Polar, and Polar asked, when will we see any exotic strategies on Dyson? So let's just take a step back and define again an exotic strategy for those who aren't aware versus one that is not. And basically, an exotic strategy is in how they compound and auto compound through Dyson. So some Dyson strats use fairly simple auto compounding where the emission tokens earned are harvested, sold for more of the underlying LP tokens, and then added back to the same LP. I think that's what the majority of us are pretty familiar with when it comes to yield farming vaults, auto compounding vaults. An exotic strategy, on the other hand, is able to take those emission tokens and reinvest them into a different project or staking mechanism or product and compound them there before being sold or harvested and then being reinvested into the original LP. So there's an additional step with the harvested yield there where you essentially get yield on yield, providing amplified returns coming back to the actual vault LP. So exotic strategies can be very different from each vault in how they operate, and there's no one specific way an exotic strategy would work, which actually offers a lot of flexibility and potential opportunities to be built within Dyson. So as we continue to work on expanding the Dyson vaults, there's a lot that will come in time, but our first priority is going to be working with our partners as we bring collaborative vaults to the platform, as we've seen with these VE33 DEX vaults. A lot of these are these protocols coming to us seeking that partnership because it is synergistic with their platform. It is useful to their platform to have this solution built on top of them. So it's always going to be difficult to say when a certain product will launch, simply by nature of the changing environment of DeFi and the importance of shifting priorities as necessary. So basically, it's always impossible for me to answer when questions. I think the most professional and appropriate answer to when questions is soon. So that's unfortunately as best as I can do for that. But for those curious, I wanted to reference in Stageboard our past article about exotic strategies, for those interested to kind of read back and read up on that to inform themselves. Okay. There's so much that can be done with Dyson. So it's a matter of kind of, again, prioritizing, but also looking to build as much as we can, because there's a lot of exciting things that can be done with Dyson. Very good. Okay, so next question is by OX0. Hey there, do you have your contracts of Sphere up somewhere? I'd like to check them before depositing money. And thank you for Plob for responding to this question. But all of the contracts for Sphere can be found on the Sphere Discord under hashtag Sphere contracts. Additionally, I would encourage you, if you have any questions, feel free to ask us in Sphere chat. Or if you're here now on the live AMA, ask us in stage chat here. And then also, if you experience any individual issues, you can always open up a support ticket in hashtag submit ticket, and one of our moderators will be more than happy to help. So we really want to make sure that there's enough avenues for helping people out through this process, because I know things can be confusing, especially for beginners, and we're here to help. I see a new question coming up in stage questions. We'll get to that once I get through the other ones. All right. So here's a pretty important one. VE Tsero had asked, is the Sphere team currently waiting on some audits before releasing SphereLend, or is it rather a market timing thing? And then follow-up question to that was, any info about Arcturus, Epsilon Pegasi, Beta Leonis, Rigel, Playday? These were all referenced in the Sphere roadmap, for those wondering what the heck I'm talking about. And can you give us something about them or not at all? Well, so in this case right now, SphereLend is just simply not 100% ready yet, right? It is currently in a limited beta testing stage. So that's kind of where we are with that. But trying to time the market can be an extremely difficult task, and it requires a very logical assessment of all factors with minimal emotional input. And even then, no one's going to be 100% accurate. So when we launch a new product or project, the market conditions certainly play a role in our decision making, but they're still just a small part of what we look at, and it's rarely any sort of specific determining factor we consider, because there's so many factors involved. So, for example, when we are looking at market conditions, we're at the same time finalizing a project branding and marketing timeline that requires the contract development portion to be completed. But then testing may find a weird bug that kind of then resets the launch timer. So this is why it's so difficult to provide a hard and fast when, because so many different things can come in that alter that timeline. So in addition to those things going on, being working with the marketing team, at the same time, our website design team is implementing a new and unique DApp that relies on another project to work correctly. At the same time, a new bot is being developed to bring value back to Sphere. And at the same time, we're trying to coordinate our AMAs, of course, to happen at the correct time to release an appropriate and relevant information. We're also, of course, continuing to work on Medium articles, infographics, as you've seen, especially on the Twitter pages, to help make everything more digestible for people. So there's a lot of different things that we are working to do and working towards. So we have to balance all these different things. So ultimately, you're right, we're driving towards bringing this vision of the Sphere ecosystem into reality, and we're constantly going to be working towards that and building. But there's just so many factors that go into deciding, okay, this is now ready for launch, or this is now ready for beta testing, so on and so forth. That's why it's so hard for us to give you a solid when or a specific reason why, hey, you guys mentioned this, why isn't it out yet? There's a lot of different things that go into that. It's not like there's ever one specific thing, or I shouldn't say ever, but you know what I mean. Got the thumbs up. Perfect. I'll take a thumbs up. All right. Plob with an interesting question here from the stage questions. Hey PT, 1.45 billion Sphere will be unlocked from the ylSPHERE vault on June 1st. That is true. Is there a plan from the team to encourage and incentivize folks to relock? So we want to preface this question with some clear communication. And we believe that the healthiest projects that survive long term should be the ones that can stand on their own merit. And Sphere did away with all the mechanics to inhibit selling when we removed sell taxes, and made away with sell limits, and then we deepened our liquidity. And we did that because we believe we have not just a project, but an actual ecosystem to bring value to people within that ecosystem, including users and projects alike. So there were people who there are people who are going to be waiting for the lock to expire to sell no matter what Sphere's price is. And there are going to be people ready to relock for another 4 months, no matter what Sphere's price is. So we're going to have people on both sides of the equation. And of course, people are free to make the best investment decisions for themselves. And we are very proud and happy to be able to offer that opportunity without any of those past restrictive mechanisms. So, all that being said, there is, of course, a valid concern as a user, as a locker, looking at this and seeing that June 1st, this unlock period, the first unlock period, 1.145 billion Sphere tokens will be unlocked. So the team is, of course, very much aware of that, and it's not something that will catch us off guard. ylSPHERE, when it was first announced, was always meant to be a temporary solution, in that we're always working towards VE Sphere, as we've discussed in the past. And we're also always looking at ideas and talking through many different scenarios for how we can address potential problems. So we know the timeline of key events in the future, and we're working through different possibilities. But even without that, looking back to another kind of pivotal moment in Sphere's history, which is on February 6th, Sphere removed all its sell tax limits. And the low that day was right around where we are now. So we know of some very enthusiastic people who had predicted that Sphere was not going to be able to stand on its own without taxes. And now, 2+ months later, we're of course still standing on our own and are in a much better, much more healthy position, and we've done away completely with taxes. So at the end of the day, we are aware that this big unlock will be an important day. Oh, 1 second. Can you guys hear me on Spaces? That's odd. All right, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. I see my volume going for the Twitter Spaces, but just want to make sure everyone can hear me. I'm good. Okay. All right, seems to be good. So I'll move forward. I don't know because I'm doing Twitter Spaces on my phone. So I don't know if when my screen goes black, if it just cuts me out. If that's the case, let me know. In which case, I will need to keep my screen active. All right, learning as we go here, as you do. So just to summarize this question, because I don't want to belabor the point, but yes, we know that there will be a lot of Sphere unlocked on the 1st of June, and we're aware of that, and it will be likely be an important day, but it's not going to determine the success or failure of Sphere as a whole, right? That's ultimately the point that we're trying to get at. All right. Yeah, hopefully I'm good still on people can hear me okay. All right. So the next stage question was from Kenobi. I just wonder what happened to Obi-Wan. And Kenobi asked, please a tutorial on how to buy Sphere. So thank you, Plob, for replying to this question. Sphere can be swapped on Balancer and can also be swapped on most DEX aggregators, as I mentioned earlier. And it was nice that the bot also replied to your question with details and instructions for how to buy swap Sphere. However, if you guys think, because I did make a how to swap Sphere guide in the past, and I thought I had done it for Balancer. I think I might have included it in the ylSPHERE video. But if there's enough interest in an updated swap video tutorial, I'd be more than happy to do that. So that just has to kind of be enough interest from the community. So we just have to let me know on that. Hey, CryptoFat, of course, I will start over just for you. Let's go back to the beginning here. Let's see. Nah, just kidding. All right. All right, a couple more questions here, and then I see we got another one in stage questions. All right, so ylSPHERE, kind of similar question to in terms of how I responded to earlier, which is what is our current state of SphereLend Preon? Have they been open to internal, external beta testing? If not, have we moved closer? So as I mentioned in the previous questions, SphereLend is currently in a limited internal beta testing phase, and Preon is also undergoing internal testing and optimization. So this kind of goes back to what I said at the very beginning of the AMA, which is that in order to improve our efficiency as a whole, we have been undergoing some internal restructuring, including the addition of new contract devs. So as a result, workflow has shifted around to an extent, but regardless, every day we move closer to those next steps that we are all eagerly anticipating, because I know everyone is very much interested in getting these things out. And of course, from the user side, it's a very exciting thing. But I did want to throw this in there. Is another, of course, very professional way of responding to the when questions is in reference to Mr. Incredible. We'll get there when we get there. All right, couldn't help myself. And then YL Dayule had asked, why have we stopped releasing Medium articles? So just to clarify, Medium articles have not stopped, but they have gone on pause. While, again, we've been undergoing the internal restructuring, and while the teams attended to other responsibilities in this building phase, but we do plan to bring back the Medium articles, and this was also hinted at in Lilo's most recent announcements for Dyson, which mentioned the SP-SLIZ case study. All right. And CryptoFat says, I have a sneaky feeling you might see a lot more soon in the stage chat. Very good. So let me take a pause here again. I know we have more stage questions, so I'll look at that in just a second. But before then, does anyone have any questions? Indeed. All right. Well, I don't see any questions coming up in stage chat. So let me go to stage questions and see what we have here. Try responsibility. Is the team happy with the overall volume and performance of Dyson? Better than expected, worse? That's a real good question. And I think that would kind of boil down to kind of individual thought process. But overall, I'd say we've been quite pleased with the functionality of Dyson. Obviously, we continue to work on it to upgrade the API, the user interface. We're working on it to integrate new vaults. So there's a lot more that we want to structure into Dyson. But regardless, we think it's been working very effectively. And of course, we have our treasury yield farming assets through Dyson as well, which was part of the plan all along. And with so much more to come for within Dyson, we're really just starting to get our feet in the sand, so to speak. We're really just starting to set the foundation of what Dyson can build out to be, and the different synergies that it can create within the DeFi space. Like we mentioned earlier on, we haven't even really touched into some of these exotic strategies that can be done. Once you start expanding into those, there's almost no limit of the different types of vaults that you can create, and different kind of unique strategies that you can construct. And then, of course, there will be synergies within our ecosystem itself, beyond what can be done with externally, for example, with SphereLend, Preon. So we're really just starting to get our foundation set, and there's still a lot more to come. Good questions, though. All right. Well, oops. So, by the way, any issues with... Oh, good, okay. So I hear people saying that they can hear me on Twitter Spaces, which is good. Thank you, appreciate that. Any more questions up here in stage chat, or thoughts, comments about the ecosystem? Funny jokes? And while you guys are typing that, I'm going to check on the live stream here. All right, I don't see any questions there. I just checked Twitter. Didn't look like we had any questions there, which is great. All right, so a couple things here in stage chat. From the mind of CryptoFat, Dyson opened up way more opportunities than we thought. The liquid wrappers have really created some massive opportunity, and projects are actively seeking us out. So there could always be more TVL, but the bigger picture possibilities is much better than I thought it could be. This is from CryptoFat. So that's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting. From my perspective, it makes me quite happy that Dyson can truly create a synergy within the space where, yes, Sphere is benefiting through Dyson, but then also these projects are benefiting too because of what we're able to offer with these liquid wrapper solutions. So it's a very exciting thing. It's very cool. A lot of possibilities within that. Pandu had mentioned, for those asking when Kronos launch, apparently that was just announced that Kronos will launch at 3 p.m. UTC on April 27th. So that is 8 days away. Well, that's pretty exciting. Always good to have a date. Always Thune, but never Thune enough. Yeah, I know that feeling. Well, I mentioned this, I don't know, it was a couple AMAs ago, but from the internal perspective, we see how hard people are working on these different components, whether it's marketing, back-end contracts, user interface updates, whatever it may be. We have a much better idea and understanding of how much work is going into all of that. But from a community side, a lot of that is kind of missed because by nature of non-disclosure acts when we're interacting with other projects, or just needing to keep our cards close to our chest in this competitive space, it can become very difficult to feel like there's much progress being made when in reality there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So I empathize with you. And part of the reasons we have these AMAs is to try to help reach that gap, because we do know that that's a very difficult thing to endure. We appreciate your patience. We hope that you're able to utilize and find use of the projects we already have out. And of course, as Sim mentioned long ago, we're just going to keep building, because this ecosystem has so many opportunities that it can build to bring value back to Sphere, which is really the most exciting part in my mind, is that everything that's being done here eventually funnels back to the Sphere token. And that's really where that concept of the S&P 500 of crypto comes from, where there's all these different yield farming opportunities. How do I actually take advantage of all of them? And Sphere has come around and say, hey, this is something you can do, is simply earn it all from the Sphere token and let us do all the background work of utilizing all these different yield farming strategies and earning from them. So it's that's why I'm so enthusiastic about Sphere. That's obviously why I joined and I'm still here, because first off, it's an amazing team to work with. But then second off, that vision is so, I guess, easy to explain in the sense that you're simplifying things for people. All right. CryptoFat. A significant value of what Dyson brings Sphere is not tied to it being a standalone product, but being a hub for many other parts of the ecosystem to flow through. Right. And in some ways that's true for all the different ecosystem projects as well, is that these can work together to ebb and flow within each other. And that will become, of course, more evident as these different projects get released and people start to see how all of these different things fit together. And of course, my role and also bringing on a new marketing team, that role is to help educate and explain those synergies so that it's easier to understand. Driver responsibility. Having an issue with my crypto tax software not picking up the buy from Matic to Sphere within Dyson when I'm reinvesting my earnings. Anyone else see that? I have to add that transaction manually, but it picks up the other coins that are gained from that transaction. Interesting. This may be, I'm not a contract expert by any means, but this may be because the reinvesting, the claiming and compounding is done all within one transaction. So it's as though you never touch those tokens. It's almost like an auto compounding. So that may be why you aren't seeing that. And then, of course, you would be taxed upon when you finally do withdraw your sphere. You see what I mean? I'm not a tax expert, so I would encourage you to, consult your tax specialist. But just as a preliminary piece of thought, that would be my thought as to potentially why that's not doing that. But I'm not certain. Please don't take my word as tax advice. I use a tax accountant because that is not my area. Yeah. Oh, just checking on if the problem is seen by others. Good question. I don't know. I don't know. Truthfully, you're the first person who has asked about that, so we'll have to see if that's a commonality, or not. Good. Hey, some people are very well versed in taxes and are able to do it themselves, and more power to them. I just that is beyond me. So we all have to know our limits. All right. Well, very good. So all set through the different announcements I was going to talk about. We're all set through the stage questions on our Discord. I don't see any questions through the Twitter or on stage chat. So unless anyone else has any thoughts or questions here in stage chat, then we may be able to end a bit early for today, which I know is good for the folks, for me, who are across the waters, because I know it is late for y'all. No. All right. I think we are good. Well, if you guys do think of anything, any questions or things come up, feel free to drop them in #StageQuestions, and I'll be happy to address them next time. Importantly, I will not be hosting an AMA next week because I have a prior obligation, but then we'll be back on May the 3rd, I believe it is. Yes, May 3rd. Just shy of May the 4th be with you. I'm sorry. We'll be back May 3rd. So no community AMA next week. And other than that, you can always ask us in our SpheRe chat or Dyson chat, and our mods will be happy to help. But until then, thank you all so much for showing up, for being here, for engaging, asking questions. I really appreciate it. Hope you all have a really good rest of your day and week. Always remember that you each matter for who you are. And until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.